Is back into it in Chester. Here's El Senior. Yes! Yes!
The center back, Jacob Glesnes.
He's going for it.
Yes! Oh my goal! What a goal!
And that will do it! One of the best comebacks in recent years. 3 unanswered by the Union. And they go into the Gold Cup break, winning it 3-2.
Hello and welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. And who would have predicted at the beginning of the season that your Philadelphia Union would have had 2 complete beatdowns of 6+ goals during the regular season? To see the front 3 finally get on the score sheet all together, just an unbelievable night. You have 2 homegrown players getting on the score sheet. It was a great night for you guys, I'm sure. Down, up, wherever you guys travel to Chester, Pennsylvania from. And it sucks that, I had to miss this game. I couldn't be there in person. My 52 straight home games for the Philadelphia Union came to an end. And we're not going to go ahead and talk about the news. We're not going to go into blunder of the week because honestly, I just don't have enough breath in me to go ahead and record a super long podcast talking about all that stuff. I know I told you guys last episode we would talk more in depth about Tati Castellanos getting his move to La Liga. I promise you guys we will talk about that in the next episode. But I feel terrible because I was really looking forward to this. I had former Houston Dynamo center back Eddie Johnson set to come onto the podcast during the week. But Monday night, even really Monday morning, I wasn't feeling the greatest. But as the day went on Monday, I was feeling terrible. I did a podcast appearance on Monday night, and my voice was pretty much gone. I could not talk. I felt my body just getting worse and worse. And yeah, I eventually tested positive for COVID, and it sucks. First time ever getting COVID. And I know probably some people in here, are against getting vaccinated. Some people are for getting vaccinated. And I'm not going to tell you what's right or wrong. People are going to go ahead and make their decisions that they want to make. But that was some of the worst pain that I've ever experienced in my life, especially Tuesday, where my body temperature stayed between 99 to 102 majority of the day and night, where eventually it led me throwing up, which might be a little bit too much for the podcast. But yeah, it's some of the worst pain that anybody could ever go through. And thank goodness, I got COVID when the vaccines were out and everything tested. And not at the beginning when I know some people that got COVID right at the very start and nobody knew anything about COVID. There was hardly any information out there about COVID. And yeah, I would not wish that on anybody. Still recovering. I'm sure you guys can probably hear a little bit nasally in my nose. But yeah, I just felt bad because I knew that was going to be a great episode with Eddie Johnson. Had a great time being on Dynalytics previewing this game, and to get a former player, now TV broadcaster for Houston Dynamo on the podcast, I was really looking forward to that. And big FIFA fan, and the first team I ever played with in MLS on FIFA was Houston Dynamo. And just that team was so dominant with Ricardo Clark, Di Rosario, you had Eddie Johnson, obviously, Onstead, the goalkeeper, you had Wando, Brian Ching, Stu Holden. So stacked back in 2006, 2007. And I really want to talk about those 2 teams with Eddie. But yeah, stupid COVID. And had to miss it. And I guess the last thing I'll say about that is, if you're sick, if you feel like you're sick, just stay home. Like, it blows my mind that somebody would go to work when they don't need to be at work, when they still have symptoms, when they're still coughing, still testing positive for COVID. Like, why would you go out in public and now spread that on to other people? People, man. But anyway, I really don't want to make this into a COVID podcast, but I'm sure a lot of you guys have a lot of thoughts on the topic. But like I said, we're not going to talk about news or anything like that. We'll get straight into talking about the Houston Dynamo Philadelphia Union game. Yes, I'm feeling 10 times better than I did. It's just a stupid cough and trying to get rid of that and eventually, hopefully, test negative here in the coming days. But who would have predicted, like I said in the intro, just a complete beatdown again from the Philadelphia Union, this time against the Houston Dynamo. And, it's funny because, like I mentioned, I was on a Houston Dynamo podcast called Dynalytics, and they asked me for a score prediction, and I jokingly said 6-0, but I said, I'm kidding. But man, like, I should have stayed with that score prediction because those guys convinced me that the Union would have a field day because Houston was going to give the Union all the space out wide, which they did. And it's so crazy to me that a team would do that. Like, I get sticking with your tactics and philosophy, but part of being a good manager is making tactical tweaks. And I guess Houston did a little bit of that because they played a 4-1-4-1 instead of a 4-2-3-1, which isn't what they normally play. But, it caused issues at times, I feel like, for the Diamond, but 98% of this match, not really. But the one thing that I noticed was Houston were just holding onto the ball for way too long. They were just passing back and forth from one side to the other and really just taking their time with possession. And when you do that, that's a win for the Union. You let the Union keep their shape and not come out of position. They went and attacked the Union through the middle, which, I definitely would have done with McGlynn on the left side of the diamond, where he's a lot better. We've said it the last couple of weeks. Next is somebody in the 6, where you're going to be asking him to do a lot as that lone 8 on the left side of the diamond. And then you have Liam Flock as the lone 6. I definitely would have attacked straight down the middle of the Union or the left side of the diamond, but you didn't really get that from Houston. And you could tell that Houston wanted to counter with their wingers, have their wingers get in behind. And I think a huge credit has to go out to the Union's back line for the communication, for holding such a tight line to catch Fafa Pico offsides a couple times, and myself included. I've not been the biggest fan of Bizo defensively at times. We all know that, he's made a couple mistakes here and there defensively where he's fallen asleep. But the communication he had with Jack Elliott, with Jacob Glesnes, with Kai Wagner to keep such a straight line to pull Fafa Pico offsides was just brilliant to see from the back line where, during this game, they weren't really tested that much, but it really does take great communication for all 4 of your defenders to be on the same page to constantly pull a player off sides. And just a huge credit goes to the Union for getting Fafa off sides. And I think the only thing that I would complain about in this game that was a tad concerning, I think it was like the 79th or 80th minute, where Quintero had a free kick and the Union were trying to get their wall set, players trying to figure out who to mark. Houston takes a free kick quickly. The ball eventually deflects off of Jacob Glesnes' face. Luckily, Houston didn't score off of that, and luckily, Andre Blake was right where he needed to be, reading that play right when it started. So Houston weren't able to get a goal, but that's the only thing, in my opinion, this whole game that I thought was concerning Houston's best chance to score in this game. But you go ahead and look at the beginning of this game where the Union, 10 minutes in, they have a couple crosses playing the way that they should. We know, I talked about it on Dynalytics, where Houston have given up the 9th most crosses in the league, and I believe in the top 5 for completed crosses in the 18-yard box. And so right away, the Union were getting at Houston, trying to attack them with crosses. You had the Union just not able to get ahead to them. But they were attacking Houston. They knew their weakness, and they came at it from the first minute of the game. you had Mikael Uhre getting the best of Tim Parker within the first 30 minutes of this game. And you had him get in behind a couple times, made some really nice late runs into the box as opposed to, running the same time as Julian Carranza and Daniel Gazdag. And, those runs that Mikael was making just shows the quality of him. And, he's not getting a ton of service. He's not getting a ton of touches within the first 30 minutes of the game, but he's making those runs to open up space for his teammates to get him behind. And then you see later on in the first half, he gets his first goal, and then the start of the second half, he gets his second. Those two goals that Mikael scored, you see the chemistry is finally there with his teammates, and this is what a $2.8 million striker gets you with those runs and finishes. And do I think that Mikael's a $2.8 million striker? No, I think he's a lot better than that price tag would suggest he is, because you don't see a lot of players get brought into MLS and have the type of season Mikael's having with 8 goals on the season, with teams spending $2.8 million. Teams are paying a lot more money for strikers that are off to the season that Mikael Uhre is having, and the Union only paid $2.8 million for a striker that's looking like one of the best in the league, and he hasn't even played a full season in the league. But like I said, you can definitely tell the chemistry is there, and it is really crazy to me to see that Mikael already has 8 goals where, I thought he would struggle to get to double digits, and we still have 11 games to play this season. And it is crazy, too, that you look at the Union, they could have 3 10-plus goal scorers this season with Daniel Gazdag, Julian Carranza, and Mikael. Those trio of players are the only trio in MLS with 8-plus goals. And they're the number 1 scoring trio in MLS, which is one ahead of Cincinnati's Brenner, Vasquez, and Acosta, who we all know the Union have this weekend. But Jim Curtin was asked about Daniel, Julian, and Mikael all being on the same page, all scoring 8-plus goals on the season, and what it means for the team. And this is what Jim Curtin had to say.
Hopefully they can all get to the double digits that we talk about as being a great benchmark. If you can get 30 goals between the 3 of them, that means we're going to have a darn good season. So we're on our way. We're in a good run of form. I said it at halftime to the 2 strikers, if they work like that for us defensively and they take away the opponent's center backs and the number 6 that's dropped in deep, if they play like that and are relentless like that with their pressing and running, there's not a team in this league that can beat us. I believe that. If now they take off for 10 minutes at a time, we'll get punished. That's how fragile and small our margins are. So I thought their work rate was incredible. I think they're building fitness and they're building cohesiveness together. But for them all to get on the score sheet tonight was very positive.
Yeah, and it's huge for the confidence going forward. And when playoff time comes around, where, I think we can all admit that we were riding on Daniel Gazdag's hot streak. I think he had 5 goals in 8 games at the end of last season. And who scores against Nashville when we needed a goal? Daniel Gazdag. And so for us to have 3 players now that can score goals, that's going to be huge for us in the playoffs. We know Ali Bedoya can get on the score sheet. And now you start seeing some of the young players get on the score sheet with Jack McGlynn and Quinn Sullivan adding to the goals on the night against Houston, which we'll break down those goals here in a bit. But this is what you want to see, and you still have 11 games left. You want to see the front 3 continuing to have a good understanding. We've seen it the last couple games where all 3 of those guys maybe aren't getting on the score sheet together, but they're playing these 1-2s with each other. They're understanding where each other are going to be without looking up. They're just passing the ball to that space, knowing that player is going to be there. And that's exactly what's happening. And just to see the understanding between these 3 starting to finally click, and then you have the chemistry that Uhre's making with the rest of his team. You saw Bedoya play that excellent ball to him in the second half to make the score 4-0. So you'd love to see it, and hopefully that these 3 guys can just continue this form for the rest of the season and When it comes to playoff time, hopefully they can continue to be red hot. I think a huge shout out has to be in order for Olivier Bizo for winning that starting right back spot back. You know, Nate Harriel's an excellent defender, and it's not a knock on him whatsoever because we all know the one quality that Nate lacks is attacking. He isn't the same player going forward like Olivier is. And again, not a knock on Nate Harriel whatsoever, but if Nate can find the quality that Bizo has attacking wise, then Nate Harriel would for sure be the starting right back week in, week out. But Nate's strong suit is he's a fantastic defender, where Bizo is not so much. But when you have a player that can take somebody on 1v1, you play Bizo. And when you have the option to attack from the left side of the field and the right side of the field, that opens up so much where the opposition have to respect the attack on the left as much as they have to respect the attack on the right. And when you have that, you're not being one-dimensional in terms of attacking from one side. That's going to cause all sorts of problems for teams, and we saw that against Houston. We saw that at times last season for the Union. And it is good to see that, okay, well, when we have a suspension in the midfield, when we have a suspension in the defense, we have players that can come in and there's really not much drop-off. And so, again, just to see Bizo come in, take his chance, really step up and earn that right back spot back, huge shout out to him. And hopefully he keeps improving defensively. But, when you need to shut out the game, you have Nate who can do a fantastic job at doing that, where he's went against some of the best wingers in the league already this season, and he's done a good job shutting those guys down. So shout out to Olivier Bizo for having a huge game, and yeah, we're definitely going to talk about him here in a little bit. But I think, just sticking with who to give credit to, again, you got to give credit to Jim Curtin for bringing out Bedoya, Mikael, Julian Carranza, and Daniel Gazdag, just to give them a rest and to let some of the homegrown players get some game time. You want those guys to be well rested for playoff time. And I know 11 games to go until playoffs, still ways to go. But you want to see these homegrown players getting minutes, first team minutes. And even though the Union were up big, I give Houston a ton of credit for still going at it and still trying to get a goal, unlike DC. You could tell in the DC United game and this game, they were two complete different games. In the DC United game, DC had completely rolled over. They've given up. They weren't trying to attack. You still had Houston going at it from the first minute up until the 90th, regardless of the scoreline. DC, they could care less. If the scoreline could have, it would have been 9-10-0 against DC. I never really got that sense against Houston, but it is hard for me to make much of this game where it is a little bit of an outlier where, yeah, we know that we can score goals, but you're not going to have these games where you're going to beat teams 3-4, 6, 7-0 come playoff time. You're not going to have Houston's, your DC United's in the playoffs. You're not going to have teams that are disorganized, lost for ideas, and the attack. You're going to have teams that are disciplined defensively. You're going to have teams that aren't going to give you many looks in the attack. But I look at somebody like Mikael Uhre, who had 2 shots in this game, 2 goals. Didn't get a ton of looks, but he was clinical. And that's what you need come playoff time. You need players that can be clinical. Like I was talking about, last year we were riding on Daniel Gazdag being hot at the end of the season. And if we can rely on Mikael, Julian, and Daniel to continue to be hot, that's just going to help us go farther in the playoffs, having those clinical players step up when we need them to. Or when teams want to try to shut out Mikael Uhre, you still have Daniel Gazdag, you still have Julian Carranza who can step up. And now we're starting to see the homegrowns get on the list. I know, again, outlier. It's against Houston when we've seen Jack McGlynn and Quinn Sullivan score. But regardless, they're scoring for the first team, and that's going to help their confidence. And so this is what we want to continue to see at this end of the stretch, come playoff time. You want to see people in good form. You want to see players that haven't been on the score sheet majority of the season start to get on the score sheet come playoff time. And so at the end of the day, whatever the schedule says, whoever the Union have to play, you play, regardless of how good or bad they are. And this is, for the second time this season, a 5-game winning streak for the Union, and the first time ever in team history that they've had 2 5-game winning streaks in a season. And then you have Daniel Gazdag, who has now scored in 4 straight games, his second time doing that this season. It is crazy to me to see the Union just click this much, and I'm excited, I'm happy, but I knew not to buy into it too much because, again, it's Houston, it's DC United, 2 bottom half teams in MLS that the Union have really looked clinical against, where they had to dive in, dig a little bit against New England, against Orlando, against Inter Miami. But they found ways to win all 3 of those games. And it is nice to treat the fans to games where fans aren't sitting at the edge of the seat. And I think it's interesting, too, where I saw Kevin Kincaid talk about, is the 2020 Supporters Shield team better than the 2022 team? And he's starting to think that the 2022 team is better than the Supporters Shield team. And I tend to agree, because when you look at that 2020 team, we've talked about it multiple times on this podcast where, the Union were pressing a lot differently in 2020 compared to what they're pressing like this year, where you had Brendan Aronson being that point of the attack, starting the press in 2020. They pressed a little bit different then. But now you have Daniel Gazdag pressing, and then you have the strikers coming to press to come from one side, and then you have the left side of the diamond, because we're seeing a lot of pressure coming from that left side of the field because of Leon Flock, where when you had Brendan Aronson, he's pressing from all these different points on the field where, the Union really aren't doing that this season. The press comes from Daniel Gazdag, who's learned the cues a lot better than the pressing cues where he was trying to learn them last year. I mean, you can just tell that he's bought into this team, that he has chemistry with this team. And now you have strikers that aren't afraid to do the defensive work, which, Casper, Cedric Santos, those guys definitely weren't. But I don't think they had the pressing qualities that Mikael Uhre, that Julian Carranza have. And it's not a knock on those guys, but these strikers we have are a lot more clinical. They do a lot more defensively for this team. They're a lot more quicker, much better first touch. It's just a lot that I could get into why this team's so much different. But again, I really don't want to make this a long podcast with me not having that much energy and not having the lung capacity to just talk nonstop. But like I said, I mean, at the end of the day, whatever the schedule says, you play who you play, and can't control that. And just a fantastic night for the Philadelphia Union. But let's go ahead and talk about my 3 keys to the game that I mentioned on Dynalytics on Monday night. Number 1, I said, you got to find ways to get that second goal. And this is a game I said the Union should win, but they've struggled against teams that they should have beat this season. Inter Miami at home, Chicago on the road. The Union had only scored 2+ goals at home in 5 out of 11 matches prior to this game against Houston. Number 1, right off the bat, that's a pass. And that's only the 3rd time this season that the Union has scored more than 1 goal in the first half, with 2 of those times being at home, in the DC United game and the Houston game. Both games where the Union just annihilated both of those teams. And that's now 6 out of 12 games that the Union have scored 2+ goals at home. Starting to get hot at home. And I know for all of us that were upset about the Union drawing too many games at home, well, now they're finally finding that form at home where they're turning those draws into wins. Now they're getting that second goal at home, which they've lacked a lot of times this season. Number 2, I said get crosses into the box. I went over the stats for you guys. 4th most completed passes, crosses in the 18-yard box allowed by Houston. And Houston has given up the 9th most crosses in MLS. 100% pass. Union completed 7 out of 14 crosses on the night against Houston. And number 3, I said win the midfield battle without Jose Martinez, who is second on the team in tackles in midfield. Who's going to step up? What's the midfield going to look like? That is a pass 100% in my opinion. The Union won the duel battle 49-45. Ground duels won 36-35 in the Union's favor. And Liam Flock, I mean, it is so hard for me not to put him in my 3 stars on the night. He barely misses out. But he was huge in this game as the lone 6, where he's been on record. I've talked about it multiple times on the podcast, where you guys are probably starting to get annoyed with me mentioning it so many times. But with that performance he had against Houston, I promise I'll shut up. Where he says, yeah, I'm not a lone 6. I like playing next to a 6. He played as the lone 6. 36 out of 38 completed passes, where Jose Martinez, he attempts 39.6 passes per game. So Liam Flock was right there with 38 pass attempts. 2 out of 3 accurate long balls on the night from Liam Flock. Jose Martinez completes around 66% of his long balls. He attempts more than Liam Flock as the 6, but this is the first time that we've seen Liam Flock as the lone 6 on the season. 2 out of 4 tackles won on the night for Leon. Jose Martinez averages 2.5 per game. Leon had 3 interceptions on the night, while Jose averages 2.6 a game. 11 ball recoveries from Leon Flock. Jose averages 12. Now, how do you get Leon Flock, Jose Martinez, and Jack McGlynn all on the field in the same starting 11? You don't, unfortunately. You're not going to change your formation up and go away from starting 2 strikers. Jim Curtin's not going to do it, especially with the form that Julian Carranza and Mikael Uhre are on, and you want them and Daniel Gazdag to continue to build on that chemistry we've seen the last couple games between them. So Jim Curtin's not going to change his lineup up to get Leon, Jose, and Jack all on the field at the same time, at least to start a game. But what Jim probably will do, he'll probably look at matchups where he sees, okay, which players are the best fit. But if I was Jim Curtin, I would go with my hot hand. And right now, your hot hand is that starting 11 you just had out against Houston. Again, I know it's an outlier, but Liam Flock looked good as a number 6. He handled the midfield for the Union. He handled Hector Herrera. He played well. Liam Flock proved that he could play as a 6, and because of that, I would leave Jose Martinez on the bench. I know, I'm a big supporter of Jose Martinez. It's unfortunate that Jose Martinez got suspended, had to miss this match. But, these are the tough decisions that Jim Curtin's going to have to make. And why get away from your hot hand? I know Jack McGlynn's had to fill in for Ale Bedoya for being suspended, and now Jose Martinez for being suspended. But that's 3 straight games now that Jack McGlynn has played well. And you mean to tell me, okay, well, Jack McGlynn now deserves to lose a starting spot? I think he's earned a starting spot with the way that he's played the last 3 games. But I don't see how you take out Liam Flock, who is your leading presser. So much of what you do pressing-wise is because of Liam Flock. So how do you take off Liam Flock for what he does off the ball? And I know Jose Martinez does some of the same. And I just went over the stats for Liam Flock as a 6 compared to Jose Martinez this season as a 6, but I know it's 1 game, but there wasn't much drop-off from Leon as a 6 compared to Jose Martinez. And I think Jim Curtin's going to have to think long and hard about riding the hot hand until this doesn't work, until it blows up in their face. All right, then you bring in Jose Martinez back into the lineup. I'm sure over the weekend we'll see Jose Martinez start against Cincinnati, but it's so hard for me to see Jim Curtin leaving Liam Flock or Jack McGlynn out of this lineup. But I think that's an interesting discussion that Union fans should have on social media, what you would do starting 6-wise next week against Cincinnati. Would you bring Jose Martinez back into the starting 11? Would you keep Leon Flock there and leave Jack McGlynn into the lineup? I don't know. You guys heard what I would do. But let's go ahead and talk about the 3 stars on the night. We'll start with number 1, and that is L.A. Bedoya. 3 assists, his first time in his career doing that. 4 chances created, 3 interceptions, 5 ball recoveries, 1-for-1, tackles 1. And seriously, I don't know if I've said it on this podcast yet. I feel like I have. I've definitely had the conversations with people. I know I talked about it on Dynalytics, but Ali Bedoya should seriously get a look at as an option for the USMT going to the World Cup in Qatar. 5 goals, 5 assists in the season. I'm not saying LA has to start for the national team in Qatar, but you want somebody that's been in a World Cup before. You want somebody that's a leader. LA Bedoya is that. I know. LA has not been up with the national team since 2017. He doesn't have a connection with these players. Majority of these players Ali's never played with. I think the only one that he's played with on the current roster is, I was going to say Zach Steffen, but that is not right at all. He's played against Zach Steffen. Brendan Aronson would be the only one that he's played with. So, yeah, I mean, I think that Ali definitely needs to get a look at, and I don't think it's weird. I almost said that it would be weird, but you know, it's a young team. It's a young team with the Union, and you want a leader. And what better player to bring than Ali Bedoya, a player where he's having a career year with the Philadelphia Union. You know he can get you a goal. You know he can get you an assist. And just that leadership, that mentality that he has, he's used to being around young players. I think that's so valuable. That's something that Greg Berhalter needs to be discussing, just like he needs to be discussing bringing Brendan Vasquez into the USMT in September. But that's neither here or there. Number 2 on the night is Mikael Uhre. 2 goals, 2 shots, like I mentioned, 1 chance created, 3 headed clearances, 2 out of 2 ground duels won. And I added 3 headed clearances because Kasper Schmelzer was so huge defensively for the Union on set pieces, where he would be in the top 3 all the time in headed clearances out of the box when the opposition had corners. And now we're finally seeing Mikael Uhre take over that role that Kasper had defensively on corner kicks. And so to see him have 3 headed clearances doing his job, not only offensively, but also defensively, I'd love to see it from Mikael, and hopefully he keeps it up for the rest of the season. And then number 3 on the night, Olivier Bazo, 1 assist, 5 passes into the final third, 2 out of 3 long balls completed, and 3 interceptions. Terrific night from Olivier Bazo. First time this season I put Bazo in my 3 stars in a game. But let's go ahead and talk about those 5 goals your Philadelphia Union scored. A lot of goals go over. The Union are doing me no favors. And so that first goal that the Union scored, this was probably my favorite goal that the Union scored on the night, where the Union are going to go ahead and build it out of the back from Kai Wagner. Kai Wagner is going to go ahead and play the ball to Daniel Gazdag, who we all know gets the first goal. So he comes from his own defensive half to get into the box and score a goal. So Kai Wagner plays the ball to Daniel Gazdag. Gazdag plays the ball to Jack McGlynn. And Jack McGlynn takes 1 touch, and he already knows the run that Mikael Uhre is going to make. Mikael drops a little bit deeper to pull Tim Parker out of position, like we mentioned, that Mikael was getting the best of Tim Parker a couple times in the first 30 minutes of the game. Jack McGlynn plays a terrific ball over the top. And what I like about this play is, yes, the pass was fantastic, and the pass is going to be talked about. It's already being talked about all over social media. But what makes this play even better is Mikael Uhre's first touch ahead of him. If Mikael wouldn't have had that good of a first touch, then that wouldn't have allowed Daniel Gazdag for Julian Carranza to go ahead and get involved in this play, Ali Bedoya to get involved into this play. So it's a terrific touch from Mikael Uhre to take the ball away, push it even further in front of him from Tim Parker. Tim Parker does a good job to eventually recover and catch up to Mikael Uhre, but Mikael Uhre does a good job to hold this ball up, and Ali Bedoya makes a terrific run all the way from his defensive zone from the right side of the field. Mikael picks his head up, passes the ball terrifically to Ali Bedoya. You have Daniel Gazdag now all the way back from his defensive zone. Now he's all the way caught up once Ali Bedoya has the ball, making a diagonal run into the box. Ali Bedoya sees that and plays the ball to Daniel Gazdag, who one-times the ball. Terrific finish from Daniel Gazdag, who's in terrific form, 4 goals in 4 straight games. And you love to see it as Philadelphia Union fans. And like I said, my favorite goal on the night, goal number 2 was the free kick from Jack McGlynn. I really thought Kai Wagner was going to have this. Jack McGlynn convinces Kai Wagner to let him take it. And for Jack McGlynn to hit this ball as fast as he did over the wall, to get the ball to come down, the goalkeeper was not going to save this ball whatsoever. There wasn't a ton of movement on this ball. It's just all about the technique to get the ball over the wall and down as fast as he did. And what I find interesting about this free kick is, and this is 100% on Tim Parker, one of the tallest men on the box, but the way that Houston's set up in this four-man wall is Tim Parker makes himself the shortest player, and he gets a late jump, and Jack McGlynn's free kick's fantastic. He times the ball, I don't know how, perfectly over Tim Parker. 3 of the 4 in the wall jump before Tim Parker, and I don't know if Jack McGlynn knew that was going to be the case, but he plays the ball right over Tim Parker, who gets a late jump over the ball. I mean, just terrific technique from Jack McGlynn. Love to see him get his first goal from a free kick. The third goal in the night was from Mikael Uhre. This was terrible defending from Houston, where Union have the ball with Leon Flock. Leon Flock's going to go ahead and give the ball to Bedoya, who knows he has Biza wide open on the right touchline. The left back for Houston, I have no clue what this guy's doing. He is just giving way too much space, and I guess it just goes back to what Dynalytics were saying on Monday night, where they're going to give the outside backs a ton of space. Yeah, I mean, they weren't even close to shutting down Bizo. So the ball gets to Ali Bedoya. Bedoya plays the ball to Bizo. Julian Carranza, I believe it is a little bit deeper than what he normally is at as a striker. He becomes an option for Bizo. Bizo sees that, passes the ball to Carranza. Carranza has a beautiful one-time pass over the top to Bizo. Bizo gets by the left back and then just completely outmuscles him off the ball, and terrific finish into Uhre. But I want to talk about the run from Mikael Uhre. So, like I said, you have Carranza and Bizo combining on the right side of the field, which means you already don't have a striker into the box. You have Mikael Uhre, who's outside of the box, where you have no target to aim for inside the box. And then you have Daniel Gazdag making a late run into the box. Well, Mikael Uhre is going to see Bizo taking on this left back 1v1, getting the better of him. And so you have one of the center backs for Houston noticing, all right, my left back's back. So now I got to step to the ball, and the left back still trying to win the ball back for Houston. And so because of that, Mikael Uhre is just going to go ahead and jog into the box. You have a defensive midfielder on Mikael Uhre who should have done a better job marking him. But as soon as Bizo gets to the outside of the 18-yard box on the right side, Mikael's going to burst, and as soon as he makes that burst, he's free. The defensive midfielder doesn't track Uhre, and it's a great ball in from Bizo, and it's a terrific finish from Mikael Uhre. The second goal you have from Mikael Uhre is probably my second favorite goal in the night, which might be wild to some of you guys because of the free kick that Jack McGlynn scored. But you're going to have the Union just play out of the back here and win the ball back with Kai Wagner and Jack Elliott. Kai Wagner is going to go ahead and carry the ball, find Liam Flock wide open. Liam Flock eventually has 3 players now press him, which he has to get rid of the ball quickly. He does a good job to get rid of the ball, find Daniel Gazdag open. Daniel Gazdag's running into the defensive zone for the Union to get a touch on the ball. sees Ale Bedoya, who's back a little bit, which we've seen the last couple of weeks. Ale is not making those darting runs for it. He's coming a little bit deeper to collect the ball, to get on the ball more. And so Gazdag sees that, plays the ball to Ale Bedoya, and the goal comes from Mikael Uhre. And so Mikael Uhre, where he is on this play, he's all the way on the left side of the field for the Union. So he's making a diagonal run between the defenders for Houston. Ale Bedoya times this ball perfectly, and you couldn't have got a better time ball from Ale Bedoya, a better time run from Mikael Uhre, and then the outside of the foot finish. I mean, it just shows you the confidence that he has, and it was a great play there by the Union. The fourth goal from Julian Carranza, this was fantastic play from Ale Bedoya. Again, the Union build the play out of the back. They go from left to right with Jack Elliott and Kai Wagner, from Jack Elliott to Jacob Glesnes. Jacob Glesnes picks his head up. Terrific ball to Bizo. Again, has so much space on the right side of the field. Like, you already got beat once in the first half by Bizo. Why aren't you picking up Bizo in the second half? So Bizo's just going to go ahead and carry this ball for a little bit because nobody's picking him up. And typical Ale Bedoya run, you get it at least once a game. He's going to go ahead and make a run off of the center back, make a run towards the corner flag, which eventually he'll take a touch. Beautiful ball to Julian Carranza. Julian Carranza, beautiful touch, first-time touch, the left-footed finish, and this is what we lacked last year, a striker that has a good first-time finish and a first touch. And you get exactly that with Julian Carranza and Mikael Uhre, and a terrific finish from Carranza. The last goal, Quinn Sullivan. I mean, this is such a great goal, too, because you have Quinn Sullivan, Paxton Aronson, Jack McGlynn, all these guys pressing the ball, not giving up, when the 88th minute. And it was great to see Paxton Aronson go ahead and take the ball off of Hector Herrera's foot. Paxton wins that ball back, picks his head up, finds Corey Burke, who's 1v1, holding up the ball against the center back of Houston. Corey Burke doesn't have the best hold-up play. Hector Herrera's causing a lot of issues coming for the ball, but because you have so many players swarm Corey Burke, it leaves Jack McGlynn wide open. Jack McGlynn's going to go ahead and notice that, sees Quinn Sullivan wide open, because you just had 3 players on Corey Burke, and now those 3 players that were on Corey Burke go to attack Jack McGlynn because he's the one with the ball. And so that leaves Quinn Sullivan wide open. Jack McGlynn sees that, plays it to Jack. Beautiful finish by Quinn Sullivan. Yes, it took a deflection, but just it all came from the press. And like I talked about, you want to see the young guys, getting meaningful minutes, contributing to this team the closer we get to playoff time. So I'd love to see it. The kids are all right, and the Union are all right. So a 6-0 victory for the Union Saturday night. And this is a lot longer of an episode than I thought I was going to give. And that's because the Union scored 6 goals. But if you guys aren't following the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, follow @FreeKickPod. Wherever you get your podcasts, The Free Kick. Check out the website, thefreekick.net. And the offer is still there. If you guys want to write for the website, just hit me up. I will take whoever wants to write articles, pregame, postgame, maybe a featured article on a player, what the Union are doing that you like. I don't know. If you guys want to write, hit me up. I would love to have as many people writing for the website as possible. And just because I'm still recovering from COVID, there's going to be no midweek podcast with somebody from Cincinnati, which is disappointing. I really want to do something, but I don't know. I think I'm recovering good. As the days have went on, I feel like I'm getting better and better. But yeah, I don't want to take, return and then have to cancel on somebody from Cincinnati. So again, no midweek podcast, but I'll be back with a post-game press conference after the Cincinnati game. But until then, you guys stay healthy. Enjoy the rest of your week. But my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.